Awesome. Okay, real quick, we'll call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. I am here. Miss Allen? Here. Ms. Gibler, or Mr. Gibler?
Here.
He's online. Mr. Palin?
Yes.
Mr. Horstman? He's online. I can see him. And Mr. Strogstead?
Here.
Everybody have a copy of the minutes from the previous meeting? Is there any corrections or changes? If not, they'll stand as read. I don't believe we have any visitors. We'll go through visitors or the people in the meeting as they give their reports. So we will start with the county clerk's claims.
All right, bear with me. This is the first time I've done this, so. Okay, I've got SPM for $113.78. Zone 4 clerk recorder, $100. Yeah. Creative printing, $128.49.
I have a total of $342.27.
$342.
Iron Mountain, $97.34. Fiddler, $6,601. Another Fiddler, $2,650.
I have a total of $9,348.34.
$9,348.
34 cents.
4 cents. Thank you. County clerk report. Hold on.
Okay, what if I just bring it back here? All right, how's that? Okay, so that for those of you that have not heard, I am going to be retiring as of January 31st. Nancy Peterson will be the recommendation of the Republican Party and of hopefully the county board to replace me. So there is going to be a resolution for the appointment of Nancy as the county clerk and recorder to fill the rest of my term. So you have that under new business, so you will need to move that on to be put on the executive's agenda. Okay, so then with Nancy's appointment, then we are asking for the approval of administrative services to move forward with getting a replacement to replace Nancy in the recording department. So if I am correct, our rules are that if it's already in the budget, it is not an additional employee. This is a replacement that we would be able to move forward and start advertising to get that person in place. Is that correct?
Yes, and we'll touch on it a little bit later too, but yes, I believe you're correct.
Okay, all right. And then the third thing on my report is you will see on the deposit of funds this month, that we got another reimbursement for our election cares grant. So that was in the amount of $16,865.69. So we got 100% reimbursement for everything that we spent that we needed to cover the COVID. So you'll see that on the deposit of funds. And then the next thing that I will have will be my annual report. I have to give this to the county board every year. It is just a total of all the monthly reports that you see. So I was working on that over the weekend, and I have a couple of tweaks that I need to make. But Becky will have the original ready to go for the committee packets. So, and that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions from any board members? Kathy, I know from my standpoint, we appreciate it. I'm not gonna get up here and say anything. I don't want to approve the fact that you want to retire. That way you have to continue to stay. But we do appreciate everything you've done for Lee County, and wish you fun in retirement.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Chris, but I assure you, Nancy will do an excellent job for you as well. So give her all of your support, as you all have to me over the years, and she's going to do a great job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Moving on, we have the treasurer's claims. First one is tourism for hotel motel.
All right, this is where I read every.
You don't have to read everyone, just
The
the total.
total?
Just the total. Yep.
Total for Lee County Tourism Council, $6,430.63.
Hold on. Should have two of them.
Should be one for the county and one for the city.
Right, and then one for city.
Yeah, and I got the City of Dixon, $3,215.32. I'm sorry, I gave you the total. I'm sorry. My bad.
So they're both $3,215.32.
That is correct.
Then I have a total of $6,430.64.
$4,630.64. 6,400, yes. Moving on, we have some more claims for it. Okay.
Illinois County Treasurer, $200. One for $17.28, Paula Meyer. Paper Recovery Service Corp., $75. Sterling Business Machines, $34. US Bank, $116.58. Another US Bank, $204.18.
I have a total of $647.04.
Paula, would you like to give your report?
So the treasurer's office is in year-end mode as far as the calendar year-end, well, the fiscal year-end also. So working on W-2s, 1099s, getting those out. finishing up the setup of the new payroll system. We're doing our first payroll today on our own without the trainer helping us. And the auditors will be here at the end of the month, so we're doing some prep for that too. And I know Kathy's office is also doing prep for the auditors. So that's about all that's new.
Any questions for Paula? Claims for the ROE.
$936.61. Each one? Oh, okay. All right. For the sewer account, $12.54. For the garbage account, $23.70. Water account, $14.81. Nicor gas, $152.92. Purity Plus water, $28.34. ComEd, $146.89. Bloom Township, $500. And Shred It, $57.41.
We then also have two for some rent. December rent, 600, and you have that, or?
Yeah, I have that, yeah. All right, December rent, $666.67. And January rent, $666.67.
I have a total of $2,269.95.
That is what I've got. And Chris, I'd like to introduce you. He's here in Bob's place today. Give a little brief introduction and anything you got to say.
Thank you. Excited to be here. I know some of you, I've been here originally when I started to work with Bob a couple years ago. If my face looks familiar, I was the assistant principal at Dixon High School for 7 years. I got the pleasure of working there and working with my dear friend Mike Grady, and I try and get over there as often as I can to get back and see how things are going. We don't have a full written report for this month. We had a number of employees on vacation over the holidays. We try and encourage our staff whenever possible to take their vacation time when schools are out. So we did have some people get to spend some time with their families over Christmas and New Year's. So the written report next month will include December and January. I did want to give a few brief updates. I get asked all the time about, the schools in the 3 counties, are they all back in session? Are some of them remote, face-to-face? About 80% of our schools are face-to-face. And when I say that, remember, all schools are offering their students the opportunity to participate in remote learning if they would like. But they are, for those students in those districts that do want to attend school, they are available to attend school rather than do remote. We still do have some districts in Lee County that are out on remote. Paw Paw is out until January 18th. And then we have St. Anne's and St. Mary's that are out until January 19th. And Stewart is out until January 25th. But the major percentage of our districts in the 3 counties are back in session with face-to-face learning. We are meeting by county with the vaccinations for educators. We've been pretty busy with that. I've been on calls with Whiteside County Health Department and the administrators. We have an Ogle County call today, and I've been in close contact with Kathy Ferguson to offer her any help that she would need in coordinating with the Lee County districts, because educators are in that 1B group that will be up when they get to that point. Our superintendents just did get some welcome news from the state last week. They got a rough estimate, so they don't know the exact funding yet, but they did get a rough estimate on the funds they're going to be receiving from the new ESSER II Act that was approved by the federal government to get some more funds to our schools to help with all the COVID costs. So A lot of them do know what they'll be getting and are starting to budget and plan for that, how they can use it to help their students. And then I serve on both the legislative committee for the regional superintendents and for the Illinois Principals Association. And while there's not a lot going on down in Springfield right now, they are in a lame duck session, and we just did have a 500-page bill introduced pretty quickly that will have a lot of effect on education and some of the things to do with education if it goes through. So we're starting to look at that now, and just some things in there like mandating 15 extra days for the school year for the next 4 years, which would, I understand the concept. I'm not sure how they're planning to fund it and how it's going to work with teachers unions. But that would be one thing that would be of interest to us. And then increasing some graduation requirements at the high school level too. So both legislative committees that I'm on will continue to monitor that. And while we do support anything that's better for our kids, we're also going to work hard to support that there's funding for our school districts to make those things happen that they'd like to happen. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Bill Palin here. I failed to hear your name.
It's Chris Tennyson, Tennyson.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Nope, moving on. County Board.
Blackhawk Hills RCD, $8,456.34. CDW Government, $805.96. Huddleston Dental Flow, $4,430. Walters Law Office, $2,583.75. Sauk Valley Media, $27.30. SBM, $160.75. Sterling Codifiers, $1,734. JP Cook Company, $91.60. Trines, $40. US Bank, $189.83.
I have a total of $18,519.
Fantastic. Bob's not in here, so we'll move on to the assessment office.
Okay. Sidwell Company, $2,915.60. Robin Schwartz, $377.50. Leaf, $225.53. US Bank, $191.12. US Bank again, $547.17. Quill, $28.06. Wendy Ryerson, $60.
I have a total of $5,344.98.
Great. Assessors report.
So just a quick heads up for the new members of the committee, and because it only happens once a year, this is the time of year that we start paying our annual software fees. So that fee to Sidwell for $3,915 is one of those annuals. So it's a lump sum we pay once a year, just as an FYI. I think I've mentioned it before, but I'll reiterate that The Robin Swartz is a private legal firm that is representing us in a property tax appeal board case, a case in which the state's attorney's office had a conflict of interest. So we've gone for outside counsel. In terms of what's happening with our office at this time, this is the time of year when we're trying to wrap up and close out the 2020 assessment year. We're in the phase of that tax cycle where the Board of Review is hearing any assessment appeals that have been filed. They have made tentative decisions based on documentation in the record. And at the end of the month, we have dates scheduled for the board to conduct hearings for anyone who is not satisfied with the tentative decision notice that goes out. Actually, it's been out, it went out last week. So we'll have hearings at the end of the month. We are going to be conducting those hearings, obviously via teleconference call. That's something we've always offered, but this year we're going to be strongly encouraging that so we don't have people coming in and out of the building if we can prevent it. We are going to leave it up to the taxpayer, but we're going to encourage those teleconference calls for that. With the hearings at the end of the month, we're hoping to be able to wrap up the 2020 assessment year in our normal time frame, which is the first or second week in February, and then we will roll the assessment tax roll to the clerk, give or take about mid-February. That's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions from any board members? Okay, moving on.
I have a Verizon Wireless for $62.26.
Or that's for GIS, $62.26 total. Moving on to Veterans Assistance Fund.
Chris, while Jack's getting organized over there, I'll just do a quick update on, from the GIS perspective, that invoice that you saw in the past, of course, ITGIS was all under one umbrella and financially and budgetary wise under one umbrella. So we've got some work to do to modify and adjust budgets because that invoice that was just paid was for a cell phone for Mike McBride and also for a tablet that was being utilized by Tom in the GIS department. So we've got some adjustments to make, and we've talked to the treasurer's office about how best to go forward with, getting that straightened out for going forward. And also in terms of the GIS world, the two offices in the back of my space that we allocated to the GIS department, both Tom and Carmen are now back in those offices, and we're going to begin some of the things that we were, some of the collaboration and cross-training that we were looking to do as we've been talking about over the last couple of months. Did you have any IT claims, Chris?
I do not have an IT claim.
Okay, it's possible there were none, but I'm not aware of whether there was or was not. So and that's all I had on the GIS side of things.
Great. Moving forward, go slow because I have to add all these. So go ahead.
The total, correct?
Yeah,
$1,309.35.
and that was for miscellaneous labor.
Correct. And the other one is for $450.58.
And what is that for?
This is for,
That would be for Oliver's for food assistance.
Okay.
all right, and then for Stephen Drew, $49.79.
That is utility assistance, City of Dixon, I believe. Or no, that's,
Yeah, I believe you're correct, Jim.
And then van lease, $218. And then I've got a yearly dues for $75.
I have a total of $2,102.72. Jim, would you like to give a report?
I actually have no report. That yearly dues is for the Illinois Association of Veterans Assistant Commissions statewide, where we get legislative reports and alerts for anything else going on with other VACs within the state.
Does anybody have any additional questions for Jim? Thank you, guys. Let us get organized real quick and we'll move on to old business. Okay, moving on to old business. We have sexual harassment training update. Becky has all but 6 departments have not responded back for email addresses to get with Sikich, get it to them moving forward. So I know we probably need to talk about, Mr. Horstman and I have talked about in the past about where county board members and department heads fit on this scale, whether or not they need to be part of it, mandated to do it. So I open it up for discussion there.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim, you start.
I was getting my perspective on the whether additional sexual harassment training is required is that the PowerPoint program that we all completed, that's provided by the Department of Human Services. And you complete that and it gives you a certificate saying that you've satisfied the requirements. I know Sikich has given the opinion that the department's own program isn't sufficient, and I'm not sure that they're right on that. Ultimately, I guess that's a question for the state's attorney. But I know I completed that program provided by the department, and they said that I had satisfied the requirements. So I'm just not sure that we need to put the board members to the additional time expense, and then of course the dollar expense to the county. It's, I understand, $30 a head for the additional training that Sikich provides. And then there's also a possible question of paying board members for their time to do it. So it gets a little pricey for something that may not be actually required.
So as far as Sikich is concerned, it has to be a guided, led, how they understand it, how they interpret it, right? It's how every lawyer and HR company interprets something. How they interpret it is it has to be guided and led. Ideally, in a perfect world, we could run everybody through like cattle and have 10 to 20 people in this room doing trainings. But I think with COVID, the problems that we're facing with that, this is kind of the easy button. My understanding is from them is there's no way of monitoring who actually completed the training. So the only way that we'd be audited or so on and so forth would be if there was a problem, a claim, that everybody would essentially have to supply their certificate that the city provided. This kind of takes that off of their burden of keeping the certificate around for 12 months or whatever it may be. This is now monitored by Sikich. So, and then as far as the board member comment goes, I'm in the same, or in the boat that I'm in this building a lot. Mr. Olson's in this building a lot. To me, I believe that board members should do it, but I definitely open it up to committee to see what your guys' opinion are on that. Mr. Strogstad.
So it's a charge just to take the exam or to go through it?
So the state has one online that is free, but we have no way of tracking it. Sikich, who's our outside HR firm right now, their online course is $30 per person. in my mind, this is somebody hires, Jonathan's brand new. If he was a county employee, day one, he'd probably sign up and take this. So until we have an administrator type position in place, there's certain things that people like you and myself just aren't capable of doing personally.
In my opinion, as a board member, you know, we would have contact with employees. I think it's very important that board members would take this, in my opinion.
Chris, one thing I would add in terms of tracking, we could be doing exactly what we do with the Open Meetings Act training course. And that is a similar thing, provided online, gives you a certificate at the end, you get it, and you send it to Becky. That's what's currently being done with the Open Meetings Act training requirement.
My argument towards that, Jim, is that we currently have 24 board members and about 160 employees. Now, who's going to manage that list? Who's going to keep up with that? And unlike Open Meetings Act, which once you take it, you're done. This is an ongoing training course that needs to be completed yearly. Right now, with what the state says, Charlie's got something he'd like to chime in on.
The only thing I was going to bring up, and I think you may have already touched on it, was just that while you guys as county board members, you know, interact with employees, you're also as committee members or as a board as a whole are supervising departments or supervising at least department heads for claims and all of that. So there is a supervisory role that I think you all need to consider when it comes to whether or not the sexual harassment training should be done by board members.
Yes, because once again, how I understand it, elected officials don't even have to take it, whether it be Charlie or Paula or Kathy for the next 3 weeks. They're not required by statute to take it either, but you look at their job and their interaction with their employees. There's no way I'm going to say, hey, Charlie, you don't need to take this, but turn around and say, Mr. Olson, you don't have to take this. That to me is, it's a gray area that I feel like we should just eliminate, make everybody do it. If you're collecting a paycheck, and unless it's already mandated through, I know the police department, the sheriff's office has some specialized training, so they would probably not be part of this. The road and the highway department, everybody in this building, those are really the bulk of who's going to be involved in it.
Question is just really about the free one or paid one, right?
The question, the free one or the paid one, the question for the free one is who's going to administer it, who's going to track it. I've got a full-time job with 3 kids and a wife. There's no way that I'm going to sit here and babysit it. I think it needs to fall on department heads, but with that being said, is it the department head's responsibility as well? I believe there is HR concerns in each department head, but they're overworked right now, going 1,000 different directions. I can look at Wendy right now, who's taken up IT responsibilities, helping us with that. Now all of a sudden, hey, make sure all your people get trained when roughly like I said, we have just figure for easy math, we have 200 employees for the county at $30 a pop. That's $6,000. We have that in our budget. The $1 million question for me is whether or not county board members need to take it and whether or not they get paid per diem on it as well.
County board members.
I do think county board members should take it. It's the right thing to do. It puts us in a position to be safe. And to your point, if we're requiring employees and we should take it too. So, and I think from a tracking, then we pay for it. They track it, right?
Yes, they'll track it by email address. They'll give us a report of how long it takes each person to complete it. So if you just click through it and it takes you 3 minutes, it's going to tell us that compared to somebody who actually spends time to train it.
Who follows up when they don't take it? Like whose responsibility is to make sure?
So it'll fall on the department heads ultimately, that if they don't, or myself, we'll follow up with the employees to do it. But once again, it takes it primarily off of our
Right.
back to make sure all employees do it.
They give a time estimate of how long the course takes. Is it 20
I believe the
minutes, 30
course
minutes?
takes, and I have to do them for my own job they take roughly an hour to an hour and a half. So they can be done on personal time or private or work time, company time. I think that's at the discretion of the department heads of how they see fit. As long as it gets done, you can do it under protest, just get it done. So. So would we need a motion for, we know we're going to move forward with it, or is it just a discussion, Charlie, that we don't need a motion that county board members need to do it. It's just that they have to do it type of thing, correct? Or what would you recommend here? Or should it be written into our sexual harassment policy that we're going to update here shortly?
I think what you might want to consider is if it's going to be something that the county board and its members are going to be doing, I think you should put it to a full board vote and have the full board voting on to make an amendment to the rules and procedures for the county board that it would include that in the rules and procedures that you are to undergo the sexual harassment training.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to move this to executive to do what Charlie just said.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Allen,
I'll second that.
Mr. Stogstad. Any other? No, we're good. We're fine. No.
Oh, we're good.
No, we're moving it, or executive, not. Any other discussion on this matter? Move it to executive and then onto county board. All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? We'll move it on to executive. Moving on, we have IT hiring update. Ms. Allen, Mr. Horstman, you guys want to tag team this one and give us an update on that?
Yep, we met Friday, I believe it was, and reviewed resumes that, is it Brian? Brian helped us go through, so really appreciate his help. He said that was part of his background, going through resumes and filtering them out, so it was a huge amount of help. Setting up interviews, I believe, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 people on the 19th. I think Becky got assigned that on Friday. Yeah, so scheduling those interviews, we're going to try to get them all done in one day on the 19th, especially if we may have to do a follow-up if there was, multiple candidates that were good and we need to do a second interview. We are doing them in person or Zoom. It's whatever the candidate, chooses. I think, Jim, am I missing anything? I think that's it.
Just the additional thing that with the departure of Mike McBride, we're also going to be keeping an eye out for someone to fill that position as well.
Correct. Yep. That is accurate. Thank you. So I think we want to have hired by February, I believe I wrote in my notes. I don't have my notes with me now.
Are you still taking apps? Or are
Not.
you done?
I think we're done
You're done.
taking applications. Yes.
I would just add that our goal would be by the end of that week, the end of the 19th, that we have a candidate selected and an offer out. So yeah, as Danielle said, hopefully we could have somebody on board by early February.
That's all I have.
Thank you. So moving forward, this was brought to my attention a little bit too late to get actually on the agenda for today, but it's something we do need to discuss. So currently, paid leave versus unpaid leave, specifically in regards to COVID-19, it was all paid leave. And that expired 12/31 for county employees. All private employees are still getting paid leave, is my understanding. But I guess how'd you phrase that, Charlie, this morning when we talked, that we need to move this we need to have discussion about whether it needs to be paid or unpaid. But it probably needs to be, there's nothing we can do out of this. It probably needs to go to executive to have more conversation.
No, what I said is that you guys can have the discussion. It's just not on the agenda. There's nothing you guys can do with it in terms of voting.
So what is, Kathy?
I guess, again, I strongly recommend that you do something because as department heads, we are going to need guidance. And I will give you my example that I had a staff member that was out and had to quarantine in December. And then I had a second staff member that was out and needed to quarantine for the 10 days. 2 of those 10 days fell in December. So again, I just want to stress that you need to keep in mind, we need to be fair to everyone. So that is just what I would like to say.
I have a hard time differentiating between a public employee and a county employee. If the mandate coming from state currently covers everybody, why doesn't it cover our county employees? We're in a troublesome time. And to Kathy's point, we're going to have situations. This is an opportunity for us to do what's right for our employees. And the sheriff's got his own dealings with this when it comes to the union. So he's kind of in a limbo area.
So the state has mandated that everybody gets paid the 10 days of quarantine?
Other than private or elected employees or, I gotta look at the word. Go
Chris?
ahead, Paula.
Wendy, actually.
Hold
So-
on, Paula raised her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she was getting up and leaving the room. I thought you were out of here.
I'm out of here. No. So this is how I think this really reads, and Charlie will straighten me out, I'm sure, if I've got it wrong. So there was a law up until December 31st that said that you have to give 2 weeks off paid for anybody who has, but only 2 weeks for anybody who has COVID. That law has expired. There isn't a law now. There is something out there that for private employers, they can get a tax credit should they leave people on, but that's not the same as mandating that they have to have people. They don't have to pay people 2 weeks. They can, and they can we can't get a reimbursement. We don't get tax credits. We're not taxed for income tax purposes. So I think there's 2 questions in front of you. One is, do you want to continue to pay people for their 2 weeks off? And then the other discussion is, what if they're gone more than one time? I understand that we have had several people who have been gone more than once on quarantine. So up until now, I think they've been paid. So I don't know, Charlie, maybe we've already tacitly have a policy in place because we didn't actually put a policy in place, and by not putting one in, the practice is out there and we pay people for multiple COVID quarantines.
I agree with absolutely everything she was saying. I think what was left before was that it was at the discretion of the department head as to whether or not they would be able to extend past that 2 weeks if there was a second term of quarantine. And I think that's how it was handled by admin services when this all started.
So essentially just let department heads handle it themselves as they see fit. You're loving me, aren't you?
It's certainly up to the county board because the county board decides what it is that's going to be paid out. I mean, you guys are the keeper of the purse, basically. So certainly it's been working. I think it is a good idea because the department heads are in the best position to decide what it is they need when they don't need something, or if somebody should be paid when they're out in quarantine. So I think it's been a good practice so far. But again, the county board sets policies and decides where it is you guys want to go from here.
So we'll try to get it on executive and onto the county board agendas. So that way we can discuss it more to actually have actionable items, since we have nothing that we can do out of this meeting. Anybody online that has an opinion? Or we'll discuss it at the county board meeting.
Bill Palin here. I see no reason for penalizing a person that's quarantined, and especially one that has a misfortune of being quarantined twice. This is something that the employee would have no control of at all.
The only thing I would say is if we could have something that it was consistent, if we said it was left up to the department heads and one said no and one said yes, then I think we create issues with people. You know, we should be consistent across the board, especially with the multiple.
Is it a self-quarantine or is it a public health department quarantine?
I look at the department heads to answer that.
Both of mine have been by the health department, where the employee has sent me the letter that the health department has put them on quarantine.
Wendy shakes her head the same thing, because I know she's dealing with one right now.
Mine, the situation started as self-quarantine because they were aware of exposure, but then eventually, yes, the official health department letter.
Through
And back to Danelle.
through the tracing that they have?
Yes,
That they've
yes.
conducted? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. The health department's issuing letters that says, yeah, you shall quarantine. And back to Danielle and Kathy's comments earlier about the consistency. It's tough to put a policy in place that's different from the policy of last year to this year, because, especially those individuals that did get the benefit of it last year, and now all of a sudden this year somebody new's had to quarantine, but they don't get the benefit of it. So it's kind of a tough place to be. I understand the board's need to, set policy and keep costs down, but that's going to be a tough place to put department heads if you're saying I allowed one employee to do it, but my next one can't because they're after January 1, 2021.
So we'll get it moved on to, like there's nothing that we can do from here. We'll get it moved on to try to get on a county board for next week. Moving on to new business, sitting in front of everybody, and hopefully you guys have it emailed to you. You have an ordinance pertaining to sexual harassment. This was handed to me when I first became chair, that we had never updated based on the the state policy. We had a county policy dating back to 2017. What this really comes down to is Sikich looked it over, said, yep, we're going to do, from a county standpoint, we're going to do what the state says. That's what kind of pages 3 and 4, I guess, would be sufficing what the state had. So this is really just an update to what we did here 4 years ago. Is there any discussion on that? Can I get a motion to move that on?
I put a motion to move the policy prohibiting sexual harassment for Lee County.
And a second.
I'll
Oh,
second.
I got somebody over. Yes. Correct. Yep. So this won't be voted on by the county board until February. Yes. So just note that we have to move it forward. I think these kind of go hand in hand with the sexual harassment training. In my mind, we wouldn't start sexual harassment training until we got this sent out to all the employees along with the contract from Sikich. So the sooner we can get it passed, the better. So I have a first and I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Ms. Allen, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moves on to executive. County administrator discussion. So for today, this is just discussion. These are, you have 3 things in front of you. There may be more out there. This is the 3 that Kathy was able to help me find about setting up the administrator position, the hiring of the administrator, and the job description amendment from 2019 for the administrators. So I open it up to this board to have discussion about their opinions of a county administrator.
This is Jim Horstman. I'm concerned about the possible additional cost. The last administrator cost the county with benefits $120,000 a year. We've gone, I guess, about a year without one. With we're still able to do business with not a great deal of difficulty. I would like us to consider whether, in lieu of hiring somebody like we had before, to hire a less expensive administrative person who has some experience in grant writing. If you look at the job description, it says that the primary capacity of the person will be to do administrative and ministerial tasks. When you look at the job description, it sounds a lot more like a $35,000 administrative assistant than $120,000 county managerial person. So I would like us to consider whether there's a less expensive alternative.
Well, I was reading the job description and I thought a little different. I thought I wouldn't want to do this job. I mean, that's just my opinion. There's just a lot that this person would need to know and do and to be on top of. And I would think if he or she had to do this, you know, they would be busy all day long. I mean, that's just my thoughts, Jim.
I agree with Jack that I think there's a lot of things that can be taken off the plate of some department heads, i.e. like this HR, right? If you had somebody in place that could monitor that and was sitting in an office all day, being able to collect certificates from the state, that's a cost savings right there of $6,000 to the county just by having an administrator. Now, I get it. There's other cost of having an administrator, but there are going to be cost saving measures. And we're going to talk about it at some point, reducing the number of people on county board or keeping it the same or increasing it. That's going to be a conversation to come. I think if you start looking at the dynamics of the board, by reducing it, you're going to ask people to do more. Administrator, I think that the key with the administrator is they have to have the power to make some changes, that they don't always have to run it through everybody, that they're going to work at the will of the chairman and the county board, but they're going to have to do some stuff on their own.
Chairman only gets to do things once a month when he gets things going, whereas the HR person is Monday through Friday, daily stuff, getting things, questions answered. I know back when we first got our administrator, she had came to the sheriff's department when I was working there, and we had old, employment things that you had to post up for employees to, they were outdated. I could just imagine, if, what kind of, lawsuit or, penalties we might have had down the road if we weren't following certain rules and somebody got hurt or whatever the case might be because we didn't have the right signs up. This is minimal stuff going on that I didn't know as an administrator in my department, in my division over there. I'm not keeping track of HR stuff, and here they came in and said, hey, you got signs up from 5-10 years ago.
Do we have a salary that we're thinking?
I don't think we're anywhere close to that, to be honest with you. I think we need to continue to have a discussion about it. I think everybody, I threw it at you here kind of last minute that, hey, we're going to talk about administrator stuff. Let's just continue to talk about it, whether between one or two of us. Remember, Open Meetings Act, so can't get three of us together. But let's readdress the issue next month and see how we want to proceed forward. Mr. Palin or Mr. Gibler, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, would an HR person more or less eliminate the need for an administrator?
It depends on how much power you give that HR person compared to the administrator. I think there's other tasks and duties that the administrator is going to be capable of doing. That if you just call it a true HR person, that you're not going to be able to capitalize on their talents like grant writing. If they're just HR, they're just handling HR. Now, to Mr. Horstman's point, we can write a job description however we want. We can put a salary in there however we want. If we don't find somebody to fill the position, then we move forward. But I think there's definitely other options, or plenty of options out there.
Well, currently the county is getting its HR needs satisfied by contract with Sickich. So another possibility would be to maintain Sickich on a contract for the HR and get a lower level administrative person to do the grant writing and similar things like that.
All you do is speak. Just gets up.
Can I just make a comment about the grant writing? I've heard that a couple of times. The issues that you have with grant writing isn't just grant writing, it's also grant reporting. That person is going to need, I'm assuming, to do the grant reports. And that person maybe also needs to bring to the board for approval of those grants, because a lot of grants have local match requirements. And I don't know that that gets communicated really well right now. We're writing a lot of grants and doing a lot of things, but there's not a global perspective on that. And there's a little bit more to that sometimes than just, oh, I'm going to write this and I've got free money, because they're a lot of work, grants. And the smaller the grant, the more work. So.
So if there's no further discussion, we'll move on. Like I said, we'll continue to discuss this over the next months to come, and see what we come up with. Moving forward, we have the employee handbook updates. It was revised by Sickich. This was sent to me by Judy right after I became chair. A lot of it was not changes, but location of said chapters in the document. So what you have in front of you is the document. I really like the last couple of pages where it's first employee comes in, day one, they're capable of, these are the pages you sign. I don't know if that was there before, but I think it acknowledges everything. Once again, we can send all that off onto Sickich at this time to keep track of. This would also be something that I think an administrator would do, but right now, today, I believe department heads are probably doing most of this updating of employee onboarding type of stuff. So I wish I had a red strike copy. I do not have a red strike copy. Tried to find one from Sickich, tried to get one. I do not have it. So this is what I have. So there you go.
There's one section I'd like us to reconsider if we could do that.
Absolutely.
It's section 1-6, non-harassment and bullying, which, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It appears at pages 9 and 10 of the document. And I'm looking at, in particular on page 10, it's the third full paragraph of this section. It's the second full paragraph on page 10, where there's a listing of behaviors that constitute bullying. My concern is that, to me, it looks like points 7 through 15 are clear examples of what people would consider bullying, no doubt about it. But points 1 through 6 are a little bit different. Those are things that may or may not be, depending on the circumstances. And what concerns me is the paragraph that precedes that list of 15 points says, Lee County considers the following examples of behavior that constitutes workplace bullying. So it's kind of set up to look like if you do any of these behaviors, it's going to be automatically considered bullying. Things like staring, excessive monitoring, micromanaging, being held to a different standard. A lot of these are things that supervisors might do ordinarily in the course of daily work without any intent to be bullying. So my suggestion is not either to cut points 1 through 6, but I think perhaps better is to replace the sentence that now says Lee County considers the following examples of behavior that constitutes workplace bullying to read, the following behaviors may, under certain circumstances, constitute workplace bullying. So then we don't have supervisors or employees being charged with bullying under circumstances that nobody would really consider to be bullying. The way it's written, I think it puts the county in an unfavorable position in terms of future claims where there was really no bullying going on.
It's a very good point.
Do we want to, we don't have to update this at the next board meeting by any means. Do we want to take one more month where we all can read through it? And if there's any changes like that, Jim, we can make a kind of go page by page of what people identify as a need to update and talk about it at the next ad service meeting next month in February, and then move it on to county board at that point, or as everybody read front to back of this document, and that's the only change that they have. So I kind of leave it at that. I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I didn't catch that either, Jim, so. But I thought that was good.
I would
Good
like till
point.
February. I did not read this.
Jim, are you okay with that if we hold this over till February, update it at that point with any updates and corrections that this committee may have, and then move it on at that point?
Sure. Would it be helpful for me to send that sentence out in an email to the committee, or should we
Yes,
just? Okay.
if you've got, was it a Word document that you had sent out, Becky? That if you can change the document itself, Jim, and red strike where you change it, so that way we've got an updated version. Does that make sense? So we can kind of track the changes as we go?
Yeah, I'll
if-
work with Becky on getting that done.
Thank you very much. So we'll table this until next month. We'll just have more discussion on that into February.
Okay.
We're gonna just table it till February for further discussion. In front of you, you have the resolution for the county clerk and recorder's position. I would think we should tear it up and throw it away. So it's based off of what Kathy said earlier. I need a motion to send this off to executive.
I'll make a
I
motion.
move.
Oh, go ahead.
I got a first and a second. Any discussion? This is just, once again, moving Nancy into the Kathy's position, and then they'll begin hiring for Nancy's replacement. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It goes on to executive. We discussed the replacement of employees. Lee County Clerk annual report will be in our packet next week. And I need a motion to move into executive.
Make a motion.
Ms. Allen,
I'll second it.
Mr. Strugstead, I keep calling you Miss. We need a roll call vote, correct? Are you going to call that, Becky, or you want me to? Yes.
Yes.
I can't hear the names.
Yeah,
Yes,
I can't even hear. Bob Gibler, do you want to move into executive?
Go ahead.
And Mr. Horstman?
yes.
Okay. So give us a second here and we'll get Charlie in here and we'll go from there. Kathy?
How you doing every election cycle?
Well, I had a great, how I do it. So,
How many you on it?
Oh,
Felt good about it.
yes. Oh, that's fine. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
As we head into an executive session here, please remove yourself if you don't belong. If we have to remove you, then it will prevent you from reconnecting easily. What you can do is after you've removed yourself, you can immediately reconnect to the meeting. You'll be added to the waiting room, and when the executive session is done, we'll add you.
So overflow should be. Oh, okay.
so. The way you're gonna do it for executive, if you want to
That way you use your mic and everything too. Yeah.
You just did.